Most women play the dating game wrong. They chase attention when they should be building leverage. They obsess over how to get noticed, but never master how to get chosen. And that's the difference between sexual marketplace value and relationship marketplace value. SMV is the spark. It is fast, loud, intoxicating. It's the reason women shine early and fade in their later years. But RMV, that's the foundation. That's what determines who men commit to and build with. That's also what determines who women commit to and follow. If you don't understand how these two forces collide, you will waste years fighting the wrong battles. So pay attention, because by the end of this video, you'll see the entire dating game with new eyes. SMV is simple at its core. It's your perceived overall desirability as a romantic or sexual partner in the dating market. Just like in any marketplace, there are buyers, sellers, and competition. Some goods are in high demand. Others get passed over. The SMV is how physically attractive you appear to women and how physically attractive a woman appears to you in that environment. It's a silent force shaping the dating world, influencing who gets noticed, who gets overlooked, and who holds the power to choose. And make no mistake, whether you acknowledge this system or not, you're operating inside this marketplace every single day. But you need to understand that the SMV trajectory for men is very different from that of women. For men, SMV isn't determined by a single trait. It's the sum of multiple factors working together. The first and most obvious one is status. Status isn't just fame. It's social positioning. It's the sense that you are a man who matters, who commands respect, whom others look to. This can be professional status, social influence, or even just the way you carry yourself. Next comes resources. Throughout history, the ability to provide has been a critical signal of value. Whether it's financial security, assets, or the capacity to build and protect the future, resources elevate a man's SMV. Then there's physicality. You don't need to be a male model, but fitness, strength, and grooming all signal discipline, health, and vitality. Confidence and charisma are powerful multipliers. A man who speaks with certainty, who moves like he belongs, who radiates calm strength, he naturally draws attention. And charisma, it's the social glue that makes others want to be around you. Finally, there's social intelligence, your ability to navigate complex interactions, build alliances, and handle conflict. A man who can read a room and adapt is dangerous in the best way. Here's what's fascinating. For men, SMV tends to increase with age. In your teens and early 20s, you may have energy, maybe good looks, but you often lack status, resources, or refined confidence. Many men are invisible during this phase. By your late 20s to mid-30s, if you've been putting in the work, your SMV can hit its first major peak. If you invest wisely, building your career, developing your body, sharpening your mind, your value rises steadily. You're more stable, more capable, more composed. You've become a man who can offer more than potential. You offer reality. And for many men, the true peak happens even later. Mid-30s to 40s, when status, wealth, and personal mastery converge. You're still youthful enough to attract, but experienced enough to lead. That's why so many men only begin to see their romantic options expand significantly later in life. But here's the catch. SMV isn't guaranteed to rise. If you neglect your health, stagnate professionally, or fail to build social competence, your value can flatline, or worse, decline early. Just like in any market, neglect leads to depreciation. Now let's turn to women. Women's SMV is shaped by a different set of factors. The primary one is youth and fertility. From an evolutionary standpoint, men have been wired to notice signs that indicate reproductive potential. Clear skin, facial symmetry, a healthy waist-to-hip ratio, bright eyes, energy. These are subconscious indicators of health and vitality, and they heavily influence perceived attractiveness. Physical attractiveness plays a major role. While beauty standards shift slightly across cultures, the underlying biological cues remain fairly constant. A woman's appearance often carries more immediate weight in her SMV than it does for men. In addition, her femininity in demeanor, energy, and how she interacts socially also elevates SMV. Softness, warmth, and emotional intelligence create a magnetic pull that attracts men instinctively. Her social positioning doesn't matter much when it comes to her attractiveness for men. A woman with a vibrant social life doesn't necessarily attract high-value men, but if she has a good reputation and graceful conduct, that can enhance her value in the eyes of high SMV men. Here's where the curve differs sharply. A woman's SMV tends to peak earlier, often in her early to mid-20s when youth, fertility, and beauty align. During this phase, she receives the highest volume of male attention, both casual and serious. But as she ages, these factors naturally change. Her fertility declines. The physical signs of her youth fade. Her SMV, in the raw marketplace sense, often begins a gradual descent. That doesn't mean she loses worth as a human being, but in the specific context of the sexual marketplace, she gets less and less attention from men. This is why women experience their highest demand earlier, while men often grow into their value later. These opposite curves create much of the tension that you see in modern dating. Young women are often pursued by older men who have higher sexual marketplace value. Meanwhile, young men struggle for visibility. Later in life, the balance flips. Now let's step back and look at why this system exists. From the perspective of evolutionary psychology, sexual marketplace value reflects thousands of years of mating strategies shaped by survival. For men, status and resources signaled protection and provision. For women, youth and fertility signaled reproductive potential. These patterns are deeply ingrained, and they influence attraction even today, whether people admit it or not. From a sociological standpoint, sexual marketplace value reflects how societies distribute value and influence. Media, cultural narratives, and social structures amplify certain traits. We celebrate high-status men, and we put a spotlight on attractive young women. Social networks reinforce hierarchies that mirror primal instincts but are shaped by modern culture. And then there's dating strategy, where sexual marketplace value becomes a practical tool. Once you understand the marketplace, you stop playing blindly. You realize that the attention you receive or don't receive isn't random. It's a reflection of your current value in that ecosystem. For men, this knowledge is power. You understand that your early years might be lean, but if you build strategically, your options expand. You focus less on chasing and more on becoming the kind of man women naturally pursue. The strategy for men is delayed gratification. Build first, reap later. You use time as your ally, not your enemy. However, for women, whether consciously or unconsciously, their strategy often centers around maximizing their peak window to secure the highest value partner they can attract and keep. In recent years, we've seen a shift in this strategy where many women believe they can just have fun in their 20s and rush to attract a high-value man when they hit the wall. But here's the hard truth. The marketplace doesn't care about fairness. It responds to signals. If you don't send strong signals, you get ignored. If you do, doors open. And the beautiful part is, as a man, you have control over most of the levers that raise your SMV, your status, your fitness, your confidence, your resources, your social mastery. A woman's sexual marketplace value is more front-loaded and biologically determined, whereas a man's sexual marketplace value is more earned. That's why you can't afford to coast. You have to build your value deliberately. So understand the game. Don't resent it. Because once you do, you stop being a spectator in the sexual marketplace. You become a player with options, clarity, and power. And that changes everything. Here is where the game truly changes. Sexual marketplace value determines who gets attention from the opposite sex. However, relationship marketplace value, RMV, is what determines who gets chosen for commitment. In the sexual marketplace, looks, status, and surface traits dominate the conversation. It's fast, instinctive, often shallow. But the relationship marketplace is a different arena. This is where a woman's long-term value is measured, not just for short bursts of attraction, but for her capacity to build and sustain a life together. Her RMV is her perceived desirability as a long-term partner. It's how attractive, dependable, and strategically valuable she appears when a man asks himself, "Can I build a future with this woman?" While SMV is often driven by snap judgments, RMV is built on accumulated signals, traits that predict stability, trust, loyalty, and shared growth over time. And just like SMV, RMV follows very different trajectories for men and women. Understanding these patterns gives you a decisive edge. Let's start with men. For men, RMV is built on 5 main pillars. The first pillar is your character. In the relationship marketplace, a man's integrity, emotional stability, and ability to lead himself are non-negotiable. Women instinctively look for signs that you are trustworthy, reliable, and not easily shaken. A man who keeps his word and moves with purpose earns quiet respect. The second pillar is your ability to provide. This isn't just about money. It's about whether you can build and maintain a stable foundation, financially, mentally, and emotionally. A man who has his life in order, who can offer security and direction, sends a strong, long-term signal. The third pillar is emotional leadership. Many men underestimate this one. Sexual attraction may spark through looks or charm, but relationships endure through a man's ability to create emotional safety and direction. Can you stay composed when things get hard? Can you guide a partnership through conflict without collapsing? A man who can be both firm and steady in storms becomes rare and valuable. The fourth pillar is compatibility and shared values. Over time, this becomes a major differentiator. Men with high relationship marketplace value know who they are and what kind of life they are building. They select partners whose values align rather than chasing short-term chemistry and hoping the rest works itself out. And finally, the fifth pillar of relationship marketplace value for men is social competence. A man who can integrate well into family structures, social networks, and community life demonstrates the ability to build a stable social ecosystem around a relationship. For the right woman who is ready to build a family, this matters more than most young men realize. Here's what's remarkable. For men, RMV typically peaks later than SMV. Why? Because the very traits that make a man a strong, long-term partner, maturity, stability, resources, emotional leadership, take time to develop. In his early 20s, a man may be physically appealing, but often lacks stability or direction. As he ages into his late 20s, 30s, and even 40s, if he's been building deliberately, his RMV climbs steadily. By this stage, he's no longer just attractive. He's a proven builder. Think of it like this. Sexual marketplace value is the initial spark, but relationship marketplace value is the house you build around that initial spark. For a woman, relationship marketplace value is shaped by a different set of pillars. The first and most critical pillar is loyalty and pair bonding ability. For the long term, Men instinctively value women who are loyal, trustworthy, and emotionally anchored. Flirtatious behavior, lack of loyalty, or instability send a woman's RMV plummeting. A woman who can bond deeply and stand by her man becomes highly valued. The second pillar is cooperativeness and feminine supportiveness. Men naturally gravitate toward women who make their lives easier, not harder. A woman who respects leadership, contributes positively to the household, and moves in alignment with shared goals. That woman amplifies a man's mission. The third pillar of a woman's relationship marketplace value is emotional maturity. Drama, impulsiveness, or inability to regulate emotions are major red flags in long-term contexts. Women with high RMV are stable, composed, and capable of working through difficulties constructively. The fourth pillar is family orientation and nurturing capacity. Whether a man wants children or not, a woman who demonstrates kindness, care, and the ability to create a warm, stable environment stands out. Men assess this intuitively. It's not just about fertility, but about the ability to build a harmonious life together. And if you pay attention during the dating phase, you will find out whether she has these traits. Finally, physical appearance still matters, but it doesn't have the same weight. While SMV heavily prioritizes looks, RMV looks at appearance through a different lens. Does she take care of herself? Does she have the vitality and health to build a shared future? Men still value beauty, but character and behavior increasingly dominate for long-term commitment. Here's where the timeline diverges again. A woman's RMV typically peaks earlier than a man's, often in her 20s to early 30s. This is the period when youth, fertility, and nurturing capacity align. However, unlike SMV, RMV can be preserved or even strengthened over time if a woman develops emotional maturity, loyalty, and strong relational skills. Now, let's zoom out and examine why these patterns exist in the first place. From the perspective of evolutionary psychology, relationship marketplace value reflects the human need for pair bonding and cooperative survival. Short-term mating solves reproductive needs, but long-term relationships solved child rearing and resource stability. Men have always valued loyalty, nurturing, and supportiveness. Women have always valued protection, provision, and emotional leadership. These signals were crucial for survival, and they are still embedded in how we evaluate partners today. From a sociological perspective, RMV mirrors how societies reward traits that lead to stable families and communities. Around the world, societies elevate men who can lead and provide. They value women who can nurture and stabilize social bonds. Modern media may distort some signals, but underneath the noise, the ancient framework remains intact. And finally, from a dating and relationship strategy perspective, understanding RMV changes how you play the game. For men, this means building deliberately. You understand that chasing short-term attention isn't the end game. The real leverage comes from becoming a man whose long-term value is undeniable. A man who isn't just desired, but chosen and kept. That requires discipline, growth, and maturity. For women, RMV often drives strategy around when to commit and whom to select. Many women intuitively try to secure a high RMV man before their own RMV reaches the floor. But you have to be careful. If she wasted her youth in promiscuity while you were building yourself up, you need to run as far away from her as possible. Many women who hit the wall will try to pretend they have a high relationship marketplace value. Always keep in mind that if their RMV was actually that high, they wouldn't be in the dating market in the first place. For men, patience and vision are critical. Early on, your RMV may be low, and that is fine. Focus on becoming, not chasing, because when you reach your peak, the entire landscape shifts. Your options expand, your leverage increases, and your standards naturally rise. Here's the truth. Relationships are not random. They are structured by value signals, just like any other marketplace. The difference between men and women who struggle compared to men and women who thrive in the relationship marketplace is that those who thrive understand these signals and position themselves accordingly while they are still at their peak. As a man, you have a duty toward yourself and toward your future children to select a woman with the highest relationship marketplace value that you can attract. So stop obsessing over the short game and start mastering the long game. Become the kind of man whose value compounds with time. Because when you do, the relationship marketplace isn't a gamble anymore. It's a negotiation on your own terms. This channel focuses on decoding masculinity to help you navigate what it means to be a man today. Together, we are creating a community of men who see reality for what it is, not what they are being sold. Please subscribe, like, and turn on the notifications so that the message can reach more men. Also, you can support our work via the link in the description below.